You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lain. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Mountain Gardener. This is your host, Ken Lain, here every week talking about the landscapes of northern Arizona. And we are in the peak of the planting season. It looks like we're clear to go. Now, at the 4,500, 6,000 foot level, we generally will use the Mother's Day holiday as the start date, the plant date for all the summer blooming things. We just got an order of crepe myrtles in. They're famous for the summer. Rose of Sharon's in the summer, Machutos hibiscus. These are all summer plants, and they're starting to show up at the garden center now. They're not quite in bloom, but they're starting to bud very nicely. They like to be planted after that last frost is done. I would say that's the same way with your tomatoes, most of your vegetables. Now, what you'll find, I just helped a customer out just a little bit ago. He said, "Ken, you got broccoli? I don't see broccoli. Where's the broccoli?" I'm going, broccoli's a March thing. It's an April thing. It's not a plant to be planted right before as the summer heat gets to us. This is the time when you're planting your summer fruiting things that form a fruit. Those are like a squash, a pumpkin, a tomato, a pepper, eggplants, cucumbers. These are all things, melons. These are all things that form a fruit. They generally don't like any kind of frost or cold. They're more tropical plants. This is your cue. Plant those things now. The same thing is with your summer blooming flowers, your zinnias, your vincas, Vinca coravinca, all those summer-loving plants. I would say geraniums. They prefer to be planted after the frost is done. So what you'll find is this beleaguered transition. So your spring things, like your broccoli, we're harvesting broccoli and spinach and kale, the leafy things that you're harvesting the foliage or the flower head, like broccoli. We've been harvesting those things. And so they're going to start to bolt. They're going to start to elongate and the flavor gets off. So you start ripping those things out of the garden to make space for the things that form fruits, like your tomatoes, your peppers. So there's this transition, your pansies. As we get closer to 90 degrees, you folks over in the Verde, Cottonwood, Sedona, where you've got some reflective walls, where it's a little bit warmer, you're probably already starting to see the leading edge of the flowers starting to fade. So pansies, violas, they'll start to go, you can't water me enough. I'm just not happy in the heat. They've liked that cold from the last few months. Since January. I've had my pansies in. I planted them last October, and they've been blooming ever since. So they'll start to fade, and I'll pull those out as they start to look even remotely heat stressed. I'm looking to pull them out and put my summer-loving, like marigolds and verbena, and there's a whole series of potato plant and begonias and impatiens. These things love the heat that's coming. So you're into this transition phase from spring planting as we get to the last frost to the summer planting. Now, you folks at the higher elevations, the White Mountains, the Flagstaff and Williams, you folks, it might be another couple weeks. You could see some more frost. Generally at the higher elevations, it's Memorial Day is when you start to plant all your summer things, or you're protecting those things to keep them looking good. In case there's a frost, you've got frost cover ready to go. Right now, we've been dressing up, and this is the Lain Casa. We've been dressing up our container gardens, raised beds, fresh and flowers. We've got parties. This is Mother's Day weekend, and we love hosting family and friends over at our house. So you want your gardens to look nice, pretty, relaxing, inviting, that secret garden feel where you just kind of go, I am so glad I live here. Your house should feel that way. The backyard patio, it should just feel that way as you're flipping those burgers, inviting family and friends over for sangria or iced tea, or sipping a cup of coffee, watching the sunrise. It should feel welcoming, therapeutic. That's what a great garden is. So we've been upping our game, getting things, freshening things up. Some of the pots faded last winter, and we just said, we're not going to plant them until next spring. Well, we're now planting those. And so some ideas, I think Lisa's coming in with some ideas on that. But it's time. You can do that. For the containers, I find that folks get confused with perennial and annual. And how do I mix things together? Let me give you just a quick synopsis. This is just how Lisa and I go about this in our own gardens. If you got a big container or a big raised bed, I'm trying to not just go all annuals. Annuals live with a flash. They're just all color. There's more flowers than foliage. That's an annual, and then they die in the winter. Perennials are more foliage than flower. They're just the opposite, but they come back every year. They generally have a bloom cycle that's defined, 6-8 weeks at most, and then they're just green. Then they'll die back to the ground in the winter and come back again like peonies. My peonies have been spectacular. Unbelievable. I put a great big container. I put an Ito peony in the middle. Then I put snapdragons around it, and I tried to match the colors of the two kinds of flowers. They're kind of a burgundy red. They've been in bloom at the same time, and this is a big pot, maybe 2 feet wide, 2 feet across, and probably 2 feet high. It's large. It's enormous. Ito peonies are enormous plants. They grow up 3 feet tall. They're like peonies on steroids. And the snapdragons are equally as happy. I've been Instagramming that on our Waters Garden Center Instagram account, and it has been inspiring. That's the goal. It's been inspiring how beautiful this combo has been. The peonies have kind of faded, but now the snapdragons will take center stage. I really like to take a perennial to anchor that garden, that container, that raised bed, and then I surround it with annuals. That way I kind of get both. I get to eat my cake and the frosting, and I get to, and everyone else's. And then I get to Instagram about it and go, look how beautiful. It's okay to blend things together. One of our nicest gardens, we've got a Japanese maple in a big red pot. It's a red-leafed maple in a red pot, so we tried to match the pot to the plant. And then at the base of it, we put begonias or potato vine, impatiens. Japanese maples like more shade in the mountains of Arizona. We're more intense. This is hard for you Southern California folks to wrap your brain around. But they grew right outside. They're a front landscape tree. We used them all the time. They're everywhere. Toto, you're not in Southern California anymore. It doesn't grow that way out here. If you expose those Japanese maples to full sun in the middle of June, in the middle of the day, that 10 to 2, they'll burn on you. They'll get a brown tip to the leaf, and they'll live, but you won't be happy with them. So it's best to put them where they've got some protection. So we've got a west wall, and we've got underneath the eaves this beautiful, just stunning red maple. It's just gorgeous in a red pot. Then we plant it because it's more of a shaded area. I get sun from, when is that? Maybe 2 o'clock on. It gets full sunlight, west exposure. But it's got shade the rest of the day. Well, we put an underplanting of impatiens or begonias. I'm not sure what we're going to do this year, but we're putting those gardens together now. But I keep the Japanese maple underneath the eave of the house. I just trim it back. I don't ever let it grow bigger than that. And so it matches the proportion of the pot to the plant. It's okay to take a small tree, a small shrub, a perennial thing, whether it's a peony or a shrub or a tree, and then surround it or incorporate annuals with that. Now you've got constant color with an anchor that you don't have to replant every single time the entire pot. It's a good way to garden. It's more economical because you're planting a perennial once. They're a little more expensive the first year, but every year thereafter, they're free because they come back every year. Then you just dress that area with annuals. I really like alyssum, bacopa. These are all trailing, drooping, full type of annual flowers that I put at the base of plants, and they just overflow their containers, and they're magnificent. They're beautiful. By Thanksgiving time, about when they're about to fade, they're draping to the ground. They got 2-foot tendrils in full bloom. They're glorious. You can combine perennials with annuals in the same container garden.
You're listening to local garden expert Ken Lain, also known as the Mountain Gardener. Ken can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Listen each week as he answers timely garden questions unique to mountain landscapes.
Look, if your mom, wife, or mother-to-be enjoys dead, cut flowers and the peace that comes when dining with all those kids, then by all means, take her to your favorite buffet, rather than some piece of plastic.
But if she really loves her garden, a gift card from Waters makes perfect sense. In reality, you're giving her 90 minutes of peace and quiet while she shops for her own flowers.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott, the place where people who love their gardening moms love to shop.
In a new place, it's difficult to know who to trust, how to get help at the house, and which nursery will simply do what they say they'll do.
At Waters Garden Center, we're here to help, in the landscape at least.
Our team of plant ambassadors know your neighborhood, the plants that add color, increase privacy, and add fragrance and beauty.
And we can show you exactly how to plant locally, or we have teams to do all the work for you.
We are Ken and Lisa Lain, and we guarantee our plants will live up to every promise here at Waters Garden Center.
You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lain. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
And we are back in the studio. We've got Lisa Waters Lain here. She comes every week and shares your garden questions, just learning from other folks. What questions can you learn from your neighbors? And so sometimes you just listen in. I find that the garden classes, we're taking a little break here in May just because the facility won't handle classes and the wave of customers that come in. But we'll start back June 12th, I think. But after each class, we find that there's a lot of people just hanging in, just listening, over listening the questions. You can learn a lot by that. So I thought, oh, that's a good idea. We should do that for the radio show. So Lisa comes and brings the garden questions for your neighbors. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you.
We had a big event at the Lain household. Our youngest daughter graduated, yay, from college. Yeah, from college. So Fresno Pacific University, a little Christian college over in California. And now she's been accepted into grad school at Fuller Seminary. So I think that's Pasadena,
correct,
California. So she'll be going off and 2 more years of education. Hopefully we'll get this kid where she's got a job, helping to support herself. Eventually, it's our hope.
She will. She will.
Very proud of her.
She's actually right now. So after day after graduation, they took off for Iceland.
Yeah.
She's been sending me pictures. Oh my goodness. I want to go.
I'll take you, my dear. Let's do it together. If you need your guy to go with you.
I do. Of course I do. But every picture I see her in, she's got like 3 jackets.
Oh, really?
2 hoods.
Oh, wow. It's chilly, huh?
She goes, it's so cold.
Oh.
It was really hard. We were helping her buy stuff and packing. We're like, well, what's the temperature going to be? And is it cold? Is it, some places because of the humidity are colder than others. But
bites through you?
Yeah, she looks like she's kind of chilly, but she's having fun.
The whole crew is that way, or just
no,
her?
The whole crew.
Everyone's kind of bundled in layers.
Yes, they are.
Good.
Definitely in layers. But the pictures are gorgeous. The waterfalls, the glaciers. Amazing pictures.
Is it truly Iceland or is it Greenland with ice? Oh. Can you tell by the picture? I don't know.
There's a lot of ice in the pictures.
Is there? Okay.
Yes.
Are there icebergs and polar bears or just waterfalls and glaciers?
A lot of glaciers.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of geysers, hot springs,
and
that kind of stuff too.
Wasn't it a few years ago that a volcano erupted in Iceland and shut down planes from Europe to Americas?
Was it Iceland or one of those? Iceland, Greenland.
Comes to mind. I don't know why my brain works that way.
I want to say Iceland too, but it could be wrong.
Huh. Okay. Well, good. Can't wait to see her. She gets home next. Is that next week? Something like that. She gets home. So can't wait to have her in. Then she'll be working for her bread, working for her tuition, basically, at the garden center. So you can ask her questions about Iceland. So Mackenzie tell me about Iceland. She'll go, who are you? Your parents were talking about you on the radio.
My parents were talking again.
We should get to garden questions. What do you got for us this week?
Yes. So this week, our first question is from Peggy in Cordes Lakes. She wants to know, could she grow figs, persimmons, and pomegranates? Until I'm getting tired.
Figs and
yeah, say it 3 times fast. In the Cordes Lakes area.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, they'd probably thrive out there. What we find is, okay, that's out 69, kind of all the way out, just before you head down the hill towards Camp Verde, Cottonwood, that area. It's windy. So they won't form in trees like you do in Phoenix or Tucson. They'll be very tall shrubs because of the wind and the cold. You do get some definite chilling hours out there. So you want to make sure you stay away from the Phoenix varieties because we're up in the mountains. We're up in God's country. There's some hardier varieties. We've got them all on stock here at Waters. Get the hardiest varieties and then don't expect them to be turned into some tree that shades your house and drops figs on you. It's not going to be that. It'll be a shrubby kind of thing, which is actually easier to maintain, easier to pick. It's better. And then put them on a drip system and treat them just like you would a tree or a shrub. I would think grapes would do well, blackberries. What else? Raspberries would do well out there. So there's a whole bunch of currants, gooseberries are in stock. They would all thrive out there if you want edible, perennial kind of shrub kind of things. Absolutely. And everywhere else. It would grow in Camp Verde and Cottonwood and Prescott Valley, Paulden, Ash Fork. It just kind of this higher elevation. They'll do quite well.
Okay. Good to know. Next question is from Sandy in Prescott. She says, I have powdery mildew already showing up on my roses. Okay. How can that be, and what can I use to treat it?
Yeah, it is showing up really early. We're hearing this throughout the area. We cater to a large radius. All elevations, we're hearing powdery mildew is showing up. Normally, that doesn't show up till closer to the monsoon season. So it's a full month early, if not more. That means it's only going to get worse. If you've got powdery mildew and then we get to the monsoons, the end of June, 1st of July, it'll just compound your entire plant. The leaves will not be green. They'll be white. That's the name powdery mildew. Looks like they've been covered in powder. It's a fungus. It's a bacteria that's eating, it's a disease that's eating the sugars in the leaf of the tree, of the shrub. And then once they've basically robbed all the sugar out of the plant, it will turn yellow and drop. And so it perpetuates, goes to the next plant. Somehow that spore basically wintered over at the base of the tree, or another plant nearby you, a bird lighted underneath it looking for bugs and worms, came back up and lighted on your tree, your shrub, your whatever that rose thing is, climber, and then it just perpetuates through the neighborhood, just goes right through. Some colors are more prone than others. I notice blues, violets are more prone than other colors. Reds seem to be more robust. I don't know why that is, but it's just something I've seen over the years. What to do? If you see it's got powdery mildew, if you can get on it right away, and it's just a shrub or two, spray it with Home Harvest. It's a product we put together here at the Garden Center since she's in Prescott. Home Harvest is neem oil, Neem. You organic gardeners know exactly what this is, but it coats that spore and doesn't allow it to breathe or spread. Very effective and 100% organic. So it's not going to affect your birds and things like that. Very effective for powdery mildew in the gardens, edible gardens. So pumpkins, squash are notorious for getting powdery mildew. If you can use that at the first sign, if not even preventative, you use Home Harvest for that. If it's a large area, you've got a lot of space, we've got a new product called Revitalize by Bonide. It's a spray again. You spray the foliage as preventative, and it builds up the immune system on these plants, so it can basically fight against powdery mildew. It's a great preventative. And if your roses are just covered right now, the hardcore stuff, not organic, we just want to break out. We want to shock and awe like the Marines. Just give them everything. Infuse. So that's when come talk to us. We'll give you. I confused everything. We're talking to a large audience though.
Right.
We're not just talking to the one client, but look at those. So it's home harvest, first line defense, revitalize for big areas, organic. Then we're breaking out the big guns, infuse. There you go. Okay. Do we get time for one more question,
we'll
you think?
Sneak one in. This is from Kevin in Chino. He has an apple tree that's 4 years old.
Yeah.
It did bloom. It started to leaf out. Then the leaves just dried up.
Oh, no. Okay.
So he wants to know what's going on.
It's not good.
Ooh.
I'm telling you, it's not good. Usually what happens is if something ate the bark, you can have porcupines that peel the bark off. You can have deers that rub their antlers on it. You can have worms that get underneath the bark and girdle it. Something got in there and killed the tree over the winter. The tree had enough sugars, enough to bloom for the spring, but then it ran out because it was girdled. It ran out of juice and just didn't have any more access to the root structure. They couldn't get more moisture and foods to the buds. So you'll get this flash of blossom, start to leaf, and then just dry up and die. It can happen on just about any tree, but it's notorious on apples, peaches, cherries, apricots. Certain fruit trees seem to be more susceptible, but that's my guess what it is. It could be grubs. It could be, basically what you said is, Doc, my heart hurts. Why? And it could be several things, but I'm giving you the most obvious things that it is. Mm-hmm. But that's my guess.
Gophers, too.
Could be gophers. Yeah, it could in Chino Valley, absolutely. So you got something that's killing your trees. Come talk to us further here at the Garden Center. I'd be glad to walk you through that process. Ken and Lisa Lain and the Mountain Gardeners. Be right back.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lain. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Hi, Waters with the Plant of the Week and our Mother's Day gift baskets.
The Garden Center is stocked full of these big, bold flowers grown to perfection. They mesh, intertwine, and spill into color.
We've grown 150 of these festive baskets that are the epitome of fragrance and beauty, all for under $25.
Each says loud and clear, "I love you, Mom. Enjoy the flowers."
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott, where people who love gift baskets for Mom, they love to shop.
Look, if your mom, wife, or mother-to-be enjoys dead, cut flowers and the peace that comes when dining with all those kids, then by all means, take her to your favorite buffet, rather than some piece of plastic.
But if she really loves her garden, a gift card from Waters makes perfect sense. In reality, you're giving her 90 minutes of peace and quiet while she shops for her own flowers.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott, the place where people who love their gardening moms love to shop.
You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lain. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
While we are talking about the planting season, let me just get something. It's been dry, and so the soils are dry right now. So I've planted quite a few things in the yard, in containers, in raised beds. And the ground is dry. So when you're planting a new tree, a new shrub, let's say it's a beautiful, perfectly shaped Colorado spruce, or a new fruit tree, or lilac, whatever it is, you dig your hole the same depth as that root ball, but 3 times the width. So the roots are going to grow sideways. When you dig that hole out, here's the mistake I find rookies make in a dry climate. They're used to humidity. They're used to less intense sun. So they'll pull that plant out of the bucket. They'll lay it next to the ground, next to the hole. They'll finish up digging the hole, and they leave that root ball exposed too long. The goal is not to leave that root exposed more than just really a few seconds. You want to get it out of the pot, get it into the ground. So and then backfill. When you dig that hole, chuck the rocks, anything bigger than a golf ball, screen out the yuck in your planting area. Add some compost. Add some organic matter. We call it Waters Premium Mulch. It's something we make locally. You screen it down very tight. It's a compost. It's organic. And so you add that to the soil, and it keeps the soil from compacting right back down to its heavy clay soil texture that you dug out of there. As soon as you water that once, it seems like you got it light and airy, you broke it up, but as soon as you water it just one time, it immediately goes right back to the way it was. So you want to add some organic particles, some bark chips and composted materials back in there so it keeps that soil from compacting back down. Plus, it helps to match the soil that it's been used to all its life. It's a good transition zone to add some organic before it has to burrow out and root into that native surrounding soil. If you just plant it and then surround it with native soil, it just goes, I don't understand. What is this new stuff they've surrounded me with? I'm not going to root here. And so it just stops. So adding some compost helps that plant to transition and want to root out through that soil, so it's got some organics, and it keeps the soil from compacting so the roots can get through there. So you want to add some organic. You don't want to plant too deep. Roots are going sideways, and don't leave that root exposed for more than just a few moments. It's critical. And here's the number one rookie mistake I find people make. Okay, this is you. If you're driving right now, you should pull over. This is worthy enough. Pull out pen and paper. You want to take notes. When you dig your hole, you're watering not the plant. You have no interest in watering the plant. When you first put a new plant in the ground, you're watering the soil around the plant. So when it's really dry like this is important. You want to fill that hole up halfway with water, so that surrounding soil sucks up. It's like a big sponge. It just pulls the moisture in every direction. Then you'll see the hole's half full of water. Then you're adding some of that blended mulch and soil mixture back into the hole, and you're planting that plant almost in this mucky watered soil thing because we're trying desperately to rehydrate the surrounding soil. If you just take a dry soil mix, you plant your plant that's already sort of dry, backfill it with some dry mix, and then you water the plant, the surrounding soil instantly vaporizes. It just wicks all that water away from the plant. Your plant is left immediately dry, even though you just watered it, because we didn't hydrate the surrounding soil. This is important. Make sure you're adding moisture. You're trying to hydrate that surrounding soil before you put that plant in there. Yeah, but Ken, I planted the plant and I put my drip emitter on there and I run it every day for 15 minutes. Idiots. I just want to choke people. Drip systems, that's not how they work. A drip system needs to run for hours. That a 5-gallon plant, which is your normal 5-gallon plant, is a normal shrub or tree. That's your average size bucket. Needs about 5 gallons of water to really hydrate that root ball and the surrounding soil. Yet you just put a drip emitter on there that's a 1-gallon emitter, but I was generous. I put 2 of them on there, one on each side of the root ball, and I run it 15 minutes every day. It just isn't going to get any amount of water to the roots. And then as soon as you do, if any does get in there, the surrounding soil, if it's dry, will wick it right away. So it's important to really hydrate that surrounding soil. And then to also, I would say, supplement for a new planting as we get closer to June and we get closer to 90 degrees, it's the summer temperatures. You want to run your drip emitter normally, at least once a week, to really, we say for new plants, twice a week. But then I would say supplement that irrigation with some hand watering, because we're trying to get the soil around that plant to hydrate, to fluff back up, to get moist again. If you do that, you're going to have a plant that roots out, the roots stay cool, that wants a deep root structure, and that will be happy. Otherwise, you're just going to have transplant shock, brown-tipped leaves. It'll stop blooming instantly and just struggle. It might not die, but it will just sit there and struggle. And that's those insider tips for new folks or for any of us. You just need to remember how to plant in the mountains of Arizona.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona, with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lain. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Growing up in Prescott, we knew spring was here when my grandmother's lilacs bloomed. I'm Lisa Waters Lain, and my grandma would be thrilled with the new Bloomerang Pink Perfume Lilacs at Waters Garden Center. New pink blooms fill the landscape with fragrance of grandma over and over again in the garden. Mine bloomed 3 times last year, making spring last well into fall, all for under $25. Lilacs like grandma used to grow, and better. Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott.
Ouch! Oh man, another rock! Hi, I'm Rusty. You know, the shovel you're destroying trying to dig that hole? Sure, I get it. You got these beautiful plants at Waters Garden Center. Waters asked if they could plant them for you. But no, you had to do it yourself, even though they would plant, deliver, and guarantee your plants for 2 years. I hope I don't end up like that old pickaxe. Ouch! Prevent yard tool abuse. Waters Garden Center. They plant, deliver, and guarantee.
So we've got Lisa Waters Lain back in the studio, getting just her garden advice. She's a crazy smart gardener, runs a garden center. I mean, her family started Waters Garden Center. She is a Waters. She grew up in the nursery. And so how do we bleed off some of that knowledge in her cranial, out of her mind to over the airwaves and into yours so that we all become better gardeners? And Lisa's got that ability. So she's great at putting containers, just a really good gardener. So we've given this segment to her every week for years and years. How many years have we been doing? It's been a lot of years. So and people enjoy it.
Oh yeah, it's fun.
Do you ever get word out in the nursery of people going, "Oh, I listen to your show. It's so good."
I'll be talking to somebody else, and they'll go, "I recognize that voice."
The voice, yeah, I hear that too. I had a gentleman in. I was helping him with some plants. He came in and he goes, "I listen to you. I go garage sailing, and I just listen to you every week." I'm going, "Thank you. That's actually a huge compliment. Mm-hmm. Thank you." So I'm your garage sale buddy on the airwaves. Thanks for tuning in. Tell your friends. So what do you got for us this week?
Well, I think we were talking earlier about Fresno, and I wanted to mention one of the things that we did in Fresno. This is the travel portion of our show.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
So, when you're in Fresno, God bless the city, but there's not much to do there. So we're like, oh, what do we do? And we're Googling, looking stuff up, and we found this underground gardens place. We're like, ooh, underground gardens. That sounds amazing. Let's go check it out. And it is funky.
Yeah, it is funky. It is amazing, cool, neat.
Oh, it was
worth a half a day.
Amazing. It really, really was. So where it's at is like in the city center of, not downtown Fresno, but pretty close.
Yep.
And it's just like these empty lots, and you're like, okay, what's going on? But you take this little tour, and they take you down in. And this gentleman from Sicily in 1906 came over from Sicily. He had ended up in New York, and he was tunneling the subway tunnels. And so he learned how to dig. He knew how to dig.
Yeah, did he ever?
And then he did some other things, but he ended up in the Fresno area, and he wanted to grow citrus. And unfortunately, the property that he was sold was not...
It didn't grow citrus.
Oh, my gosh. Talk about hard pan. Holy cow. He wasn't growing anything on that. So then, being a fortuitous guy, he started digging. He's thinking, I'll just grow underground. It is amazing. The catacombs, and he'd have just a simple special room. He'd put like a built-up container in it, and he'd grow a grapefruit tree in it. And he always had these little sunlights up above. It's amazing. If you ever find yourself in that area, you should go check it out.
It's fun to do. And then they didn't have air conditioning back then. So he started digging just because it's cooler. And so he's got different layers for different coolness.
I think
different
there's
plants.
3 different layers.
Yeah, and you can feel the temperature change as you go deeper, 10 foot to 12 foot to 20 foot.
Right.
So, but all of them had these skylights built in where light can come in and help the citrus to grow. His family was famous for citrus. He's got fancy graphs of some old school things. Very interesting kinds of plant. But yes, Fresno travel.
Really cool.
Underground gardens of Fresno, California.
If you ever want to see hard pan or get an explanation of hard pan.
Yeah, you'll see first. Yeah.
I mean, he was using it to make bricks or rocks for his tunnels. It's amazing. But fun place to go. If you ever find yourself in Fresno, check it out.
But we were talking, so it's the season for container gardening, getting your pretty annuals, decorating your pots, getting your patios ready or your decks ready. This is probably one of my favorite times of the year. I start ripping out all the pansies that are starting to kind of go.
I had to slow her down, folks, because they're glorious. I'm going, they look so good. What are you doing? We've waited all winter for this time, and you're switching them out. Or it's that gardener always looking forward to the next season.
Because I know as soon as we get a little warmer, they're done.
As you hit 90 degrees, it's over.
And we get so much pretty stuff in. It's just like, ooh, I want to take that home, put that in. Ooh, I want to take that home. So it's just like I get greedy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think people get overwhelmed, I guess, when they think about putting their containers together. They just kind of, there's so much out there that they tend just to get overwhelmed with it all, and they just don't know where to even start when they're putting together a container. And I heard you talking earlier about using perennials and that type of thing, and we do that a lot. But there's a lot of containers we're just yanking out the old stuff and putting in fresh every year.
True. So what are some ideas? How do you just teased us. How do you simplify
That's it.
it?
That's all we got time for.
Yeah. You have 5 minutes for
No, so when it comes to containers, there's the old thrill, fill, and spill. You know, the thrill is something tall, either in the center or the back portion of your container, that gives you something to look at. It catches your attention. It draws your eye. There's the fill, which does just what it says, fills that space between your tall ones and your low spillers that are going to creep over the edge of your pots. You don't have to follow that all the time, but if you're new at it and you're just starting to put containers together, it's a really good way to kind of help your mind figure out what you want to do with your pots.
I think a lot of times I see too many folks. This is especially commercial properties. They've always got someone that thinks they're a gardener, a designer. They go, I'll take care of the pots. And it comes out two-dimensional.
Right.
There's no height. There's no variance. There's no, they call that birthday cake effect, small then spilling down to the overflowing with life kind of stuff. It's important in a commercial setting, hotels. It's helping the casino put some things together. They need some help dressing up the entrances. You need to thrill, spill, and fill kind of stuff. That's a good technique to get started with.
Oh, it is. Definitely. And a good way to do it is when you're in the store, grab your shopping cart, pretend it's your container.
Oh, good.
And just start arranging things on the top of your shopping cart.
Put things that look good together on that cart and go, well, that's a good container. One down. Put them on the bottom cart or go get another shopping cart.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of them.
Definitely.
And just design right there on the fly.
So some of my favorites, I thought I would just talk about some things that I really like to use in my pots. In a really hot sun spot, one of my favorite things to do is use the red fountain grass. Now, red fountain grass is just beautiful color, too. It's kind of a burgundy color, and it sends off the fronds, which are kind of a nice wheat color. It's an annual grass, so it's not going to take over my pot. I can throw it away at the end of the season. But I love to mix white wave petunias with it as kind of my spiller.
Yeah.
The thing with the fountain grass is because it does get fairly large in the way it's shaped, you don't have to use a filler so much, but it's beautiful when you have that upright in your pot and then the white wave petunia or the calibrachoa draping over the bottom of the pot.
I don't think we use white enough.
Oh, I
think
agree.
White makes those other colors, those bold colors, it makes them pop. Makes them bring out.
Definitely.
What are some other combos we can go with?
The other one that I really like to use is the Mystic Spires salvia. So a lot of people are used to the Victoria blue, which has been around forever and ever, but the Mystic Spires has a darker blue and it gets taller. And I think it's a little tougher. In my opinion, it's a little tougher.
I would agree.
Just very dramatic, nice thriller in that pot. And I like to mix vinca with it because they're both can take the heat. They're not overly thirsty, so they have the same watering requirements. So I like to mix vinca. And vinca is one of those great plants. One of my favorite is the Cora strawberry.
Oh, yeah. Very pretty.
The thing I like about vinca is it self-deadheads. So you're not out there trying to deadhead it all the time.
And animals don't eat either one of those.
No.
So they don't like salvias, vincas. It's javelina, rabbits. You're golden.
And I like to mix verbena with that as my spiller. And they're, again, animal resistant. somewhat drought hardy. It's not an overly thirsty plant, so it's a great one to mix in there. You're giving me the time. I have so much, honey, so much. My other favorite is using Dracaena spikes with geraniums.
Oh, classic. Can't go wrong with that.
That is a classic. And we have a new Dracaena spike that is pink colored. It's almost like a cherry color.
Yeah.
I love that one. And I like to mix Bacopa with that. We have a Snowtopia Bacopa that is just a
Snowtopia Bacopa. I know. That's a great name.
Say that one 5 times. But just so pretty mixed to kind of spill over the edge. But I would say, come on in. Let us help you put your pots together.
We've got folks that help you design here at the Garden Center, too. So if you get overwhelmed, come talk to us. We'll help you put together beautiful gardens at your house.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lain. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
New to the area with your dream home on the inside, but surrounded by boring? A castle surrounded by rock is just so bland, but we can help.
At Waters, we have a team of plant experts ready to dress up and decorate even the most boring of landscapes with something fresh, new, and evergreen.
Plus, we deliver and plant for you.
Designer plants with the experts to help you beautify your new abode.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott.
Hi, Lisa with the plants of the week and our single blue pinyon pine.
This new blue variety lends to a tidy appearance in a bold, tough tree.
Highly desirable for its edible pine nuts, so eat up.
Let it grow wild. Or this 10-foot tree can be shaped for the holidays.
These perfectly formed trees are just $85 and only found at Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott.
Where people who love native pines and pine nuts, they love to shop. All right, we are back with the Mountain Gardener. I have a very special guest in the studio. He is one of the guys, he's got more influence than most as far as gardening in the state of Arizona. Jim Roop is the representative, the guy that we all go to from a garden center standpoint when it comes to premier plants. So Jim represents Monrovia growers for Arizona, and you just travel and meet garden centers, right? You don't talk to the public, so it's rare that anyone, a homeowner, would talk to you, right?
Right, very much. Yeah, I'm just out.
So there we go.
Seeing garden centers throughout the great state of Arizona.
So he was in the here at the garden center. I go, Jim, follow me. You got to share. I was just helping a customer with Prime Jim blackberries, and I hiccuped for a moment. I did go, okay. I got too much information going through my head, and it's your introduction. It's your blackberry that's out there. I really want to know from you, how would you describe, or how would we grow Prime Jim over, let's say, a black satin blackberry or a traditional thorned blackberry? What's so special about Monrovia and your Prime Jim?
Well, Prime Jim it's a great blackberry. It's a great tasting blackberry. You know, first and foremost, that's got to be a key. It's got to taste good. You know, but the real attribute besides the taste for the Prime Jim is it blooms on new canes. So you don't have to worry so much. A lot of blackberries, you know, they bloom on the older cane and special pruning techniques. The Prime Jim it blooms on new canes. So it's kind of an easy one to take care of because you just cut those canes down all the way in the wintertime. New canes come up, and that's where your fruit is going to be. So it makes the pruning part much easier than some of the other blackberries.
But you still have the same size, so it can grow up above head high and sprawl out bramble.
A little bit larger one, yeah.
Gotcha. So it's going to be aggressive. It's going to provide not just aggressive, but a lot of berries because that cane's going to have berries on it.
Right. But, you know, since you're starting out pruning it, you know, starting it just coming up, you know, fresh in the spring, it's not going to get overly big.
Okay.
You know, or like some of the others can that bloom on or fruit on the older wood.
Same big berry. So I grow a lot of black satins.
Yeah.
I can get bushels of blackberries. I mean, bushels of blackberries. I mean, just off of a few bushes. It's going to have that big berry, juicy. My mouth's watering just thinking about this. So good. Same fruit, but it also has a mild thorn. It's not too bad.
It does have thorns, but yeah, it's mild. It's not overly thorny or compared to some, yeah.
How do you find these berries? How do you come up with this stuff? All blackberries fruit on second-year wood. That's the way it is. Yet you come out a couple of years ago with Prime Gem that's easier than ever to grow. How do you find this?
We work with hybridizers, and they help us out. We say this is what we're looking for, or this is what the public is asking for, and we feel there's a need for this, and
they find it.
And yeah.
Could describe a hybridizer for her. What is a hybridizer? What is that? What is that? How do you get that job?
Well, it's people throughout the country. A lot of times, it's people who have a hobby almost.
Okay.
And they have a passion for roses. They have a passion for blackberries or whatever it may be, peonies, and they just have a passion for it. So their goal is to develop better, plants out there by doing hybridizing to come up with a better plant that suits, whether it's better tasting fruit, thornless aspects, a smaller size, or whatever. So, and then a lot of they develop something and they approach the growers or have a relationship with the growers. Like we have a lot of relationships with a lot of hybridizers throughout the world, or people who find plants, explore the world looking for plants, and we have relationships with them. And they let us know what they find or have come up with, and we go from there. And
so
this will
you
work.
look at it and go, "This is a new plant. Oh, we feel there's a market for that. We feel that there's a need. People are asking for this new blackberry, let's say, or a new peony that smells better than ever, or whatever it is." And then you go, "We can grow that." And so they give you a tissue culture, a seed, or how do they give that plant to you?
It's usually in the plant itself.
Okay.
And then from there,
gotcha.
we decide, is it something that we can reproduce by cutting, tissue culture,
Okay.
grafting, just however the different, propagation and what will work for that plant.
Prime Gem, how is that? Is that a graft? Is that you're taking cuttings and
That's
rooting those?
That's cuttings, yeah.
Gotcha. I would think that would be the way it would be with blackberries.
And then, speaking of desirable aspects, is a very new blackberry out too is called baby cakes.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Now, this one, it does bloom on the previous year's wood, but the real benefit of this one is it only gets to it's not a brambling vine. It's perfect for somebody who wants to do a blackberry in a container or small yards. It only gets to about 3 to 4 feet, and it's more of an upright shrubby habit to it. So that's a whole new possibility for people who want blackberries and berries that, before you need a little more room for them. But this is perfect for the smaller garden, patio even. So
yeah, blackberries can get huge.
Yeah.
So now you've developed a shrub, miniature blackberry, same fruit, but now it's on an upright shrub that would grow well in a raised bed or even a pot. I've grown that in a container.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a beautiful shrub. The grandkids come over and think they've died and gone to heaven when they can go pick a blackberry off of a shrub that's in a pot that's at their height. They'll go all day long till their whole face is black or blue with stained juice on their face. It's so cute.
And that's the one thing I do like about the baby cake is it's actually a very attractive shrub. Mm-hmm. It's not a rambling vine. It's a attractive shrub. The foliage is pretty on it, really dark green. And
but you said second year wood again. So
yeah.
So the Prime Gem, the person that was coming in, they were from Williams. They're avid gardeners. They love edible fruits, and they're trying to grow, but it's so cold up there that I think they'd had black satin or something with second year wood, and it never produced fruit. It would die back to the ground, come back up because the winters were so harsh. They went with Prime Gem because they're guaranteed to get fruit, even at high elevation on that.
Well, and that's where may not have been the cold so much as if you're not doing the right pruning sometimes.
Oh, okay.
You're not cutting out you cut out the wrong wood or et cetera. You may not get the best production. So that's a problem sometimes. But exactly, that's what makes the Prime Gem so simple.
You don't have to be a gardener. You can blunder your way through, and you're still going to get berries no matter how you prune the thing.
Yeah, just prune it, new growth, new canes come up, and that's what it's going to fruit on.
You know what I found with the baby cakes, too, just that variety. And we've got all those back there ready to plant now. You can plant those right now.
Yep.
What I found was you don't really trim this thing back. You trim it more like a hedge, the baby cakes. So you've always got second-year wood on there because you're going more for form, at least I was, in this beautiful container. It's more about art and looking good. And the berries were more of a frosting or bonus or just added benefit. It was so pretty with that classic blackberry leaf, and the fruit came on. It was easy to prune. You didn't prune it right back to the ground. You pruned it, gave it a haircut.
And we don't want to make it sound like it's hard to grow blackberries or prune.
Yeah,
it's really, it's easy. It's like on the baby cakes, you get the fruit off of it, and once you're done with the fruit on that cane, you just cut that cane out.
Yeah.
And then you're having new ones that come up every year in the spring, of course, and you just select a good 5, 6, or 7 new canes and let those develop, and that'd be your next year's wood. And when those bloom, you cut those down and keep some new ones. It's really not hard.
To keep up with it, I find is best with my raspberries and blackberries. As we've harvested all of the fruit off of that particular, let's say it's a long cane, when we're done, I just go, I don't want to forget which cane it was.
Right, cut
it back to the ground.
Yep, exactly.
And then the new ones, all that energy goes to the new canes coming out.
Yep.
And then that's where I'm going to get fruit for next year.
On those that do
so
that.
Easy.
Yeah.
Sometimes we make it so complicated sometimes. Then I notice that I need to fertilize more regularly.
Yeah.
My grapes and my berries, they take a lot of food to create that berry. So I'll sprinkle that all-purpose plant food we put together here at Waters about every other month. That seems to be the sequence. Every 6-8 weeks or so, I'll sprinkle some in, and it just eats that up and produces berries. Grapes like it equally as well.
Yep.
Jim Roop with Monrovia Growers here in the studio on The Mountain Gardener. Be right back with more.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lain. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Look, if your mom, wife, or mother-to-be enjoys dead, cut flowers and the peace that comes when dining with all those kids, then by all means, take her to your favorite buffet rather than some piece of plastic.
But if she really loves her garden, a gift card from Waters makes perfect sense. In reality, you're giving her 90 minutes of peace and quiet while she shops for her own flowers.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott, the place where people who love their gardening moms love to shop. New to the area with your dream home on the inside, but surrounded by boring? A castle surrounded by rock is just so bland, but we can help.
At Waters, we have a team of plant experts ready to dress up and decorate even the most boring of landscapes with something fresh, new, and evergreen.
Plus, we deliver and plant for you.
Designer plants with the experts to help you beautify your new abode.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott.
You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lain. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now, welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
If you're having parties and you just want some color, you want your home to just greet you going, I am so happy that you're here, or as guests come to visit, your mom's coming over for dinner, your front entrance should just go, gosh, I'm glad you're here. Welcome. And so a lot of these covered patios, the door's got this patio or entrance that's rather dark. So it can be a little tricky to plant in those areas. Here's some things that's really worked at our house. What I find is geraniums do amazingly well in a bright, shady area. That is, it's a south-facing entrance, but it's covered. That's a pretty bright light. It might be full shade, but even full shade in the mountains of Arizona is very bright. I find my geraniums bloom longer when I put them in that kind of spot. Petunias, especially the trailing wave, the rambling type varieties of petunias, do amazingly well. And then, of course, in those areas, you can get your hardcore shade-loving plants, and they will bloom nonstop. I mean, bacopa, you've got begonias, impatiens, fuchsias. These are all plants that love that shaded area by the entrance. You can be in a container. A lot of the bigger, we just had some Martha Washington geraniums. This is kind of, I shouldn't tell you this, but this is kind of what I do sometimes. We'll take it's a 2-gallon geranium. It's glorious, in full bloom. I don't have a pot yet. I just like it. Bring it home. I don't even plant it. I just have the big grower's pot. I put it right by the front door and go, look what a great gardener I am. Isn't it pretty? Welcome to my house. We're so glad everyone's over. And so we just kind of water them at the front door. And they'll bloom amazingly well because it's more protected. I say it's the same way of that back patio area where you got the grills and that beautiful entertainment, the fire pits. Sometimes it's got too much hardware. It looks, you've got all the accessories, but it doesn't feel quite right. That's usually because you've got more hardware. Hardscape is what we call it. Then softscape. Softscape are your plant kind of things. This is a trellis with a vine on it, some grapes, a container, some shrubs around the outer edge. You need something living and breathing out there where it doesn't feel as comfortable. So it's very easy to put a container of whatever, or just buy a big geranium. We've got some big bougainvilleas or whatever. Just instantly plop them down. I've even gone so far as, I shouldn't share the inner secrets with you all, but here you go. It works, and people are impressed by it. I'll take a pot. I won't even plant the plant. It's an annual. I'll plant the pot in the ground. It never comes out of its grower's pot. It's just in the ground. It looks like it's been planted, but it's not. It's just sitting there in the ground. I even have some containers in the ground that I use as sleeves. It's a container that holds other containers, so I can just flip them out real easy. So I don't even have to pull the shovel out. I'll just take an instant ready plant. And so I've got certain spots that I always want something colorful there, by the driveway, by the front entrance. And so that's a little trick I use. And then I'll run my drip emitters by those planted pots, so that no matter what's planted there, I can have irrigation that will take care of it. Very easy way to have a high fashion, high color, entertaining, just fun, greeting you, going, I am so happy that you are here, welcome home kind of stuff. These are all things you can do for your mom too. It's Mother's Day, isn't it? Great gift ideas. And don't forget, mothers do love gift cards to their favorite garden center, whether it's Plant Fair over in Payson, Warner's over at in Flagstaff, or Christopher's Gardens in the White Mountains, or Waters Garden Center here in Prescott. It is the planting season. Take your mom to the garden center. She'll love spending an hour with you cruising around the gardens. It's just a fun way to connect, even multi-generationally connecting here at Mother's Day.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona, with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lain. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Hi, Waters with the Plant of the Week and our Mother's Day gift baskets.
The garden center is stocked full of these big, bold flowers grown to perfection. They mesh, intertwine, and spill into color.
We've grown 150 of these festive baskets that are the epitome of fragrance and beauty, all for under $25.
Each says loud and clear, I love you, Mom. Enjoy the flowers.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott, where people who love gift baskets for Mom, they love to shop.
Look, if your mom, wife, or mother-to-be enjoys dead, cut flowers and the peace that comes when dining with all those kids, then by all means, take her to your favorite buffet, rather than some piece of plastic.
But if she really loves her garden, a gift card from Waters makes perfect sense. In reality, you're giving her 90 minutes of peace and quiet while she shops for her own flowers.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott, the place where people who love their gardening moms love to shop.
You've been listening to local garden expert Ken Lain, the owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Join him each week as he answers timely garden questions unique to the area. He can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center, located in Prescott at 1815 Iron Springs Road. Thanks for tuning in to The Mountain Gardener.